I contributed to the company for 12 years, but my father gave it to my sister. Now they have abandoned him after his heart attack. I'm a 36-year-old woman who was pushed out of my father's business just 8 months ago. For some context, I've been a part of our family jewelry business for nearly 12 years now. It was started by my grandfather on my dad's side, then passed on to my father. Naturally, I assumed it would come to me next as the older sister. I've always been deeply interested in the business ever since my teenage years. My dad constantly reassured me that I would eventually take over the business because my sister, who is now 33, never showed any interest in having a career. Her focus was always on getting married and starting a family. So, if there was going to be an heir for the business, it would logically be me. This assumption was always taken for granted. We never formalized it in writing, which, in hindsight, was a mistake. I had served as my dad's personal assistant for 12 years and even quit my first job after 2 years to gain genuine work experience before joining him. I didn't want to come across as entitled. Despite everything I did, my father still replaced me with my sister and her incredibly wealthy fiancé. She hadn't been part of the family for the past 15 years, having made some really bad decisions. My parents decided to cut her off right after she turned 18. She had announced she wouldn't be going to college because she wanted to explore and find herself. That didn't sit well with my parents. They gave her an ultimatum: either go to college or leave. True to her nature, she chose to leave and moved in with her boyfriend at the time. Their relationship didn't last, and they broke up within 6 months. Afterward, she came back to our doorstep, asking to be let back into the family. Before leaving, she had said awful things to my parents. She claimed she didn't need them anymore and was better off without a family like ours. She said we weren't good enough for her because her boyfriend's family was doing much better financially. She really put us down and humiliated us before she left. When she came back, my dad told her the conditions he had set still stood. She now had to agree to go to college and get a degree, no matter what field she chose, or she could stay out. My sister tried to argue and fight her way back into the family, but my dad remained adamant, so she had to leave once again. This time, she vowed never to come back again. For the next 15 years, we only saw her at family events, never otherwise. Whenever she had a life update, we heard about it through other relatives because she refused to speak to us directly. My mom and I tried reaching out several times, but since we remained on good terms with my father, she wouldn't talk to us either. She was incredibly proud and stuck to her word. She didn't come back until my dad tried to re-establish contact with her himself. She figured out her life on her own, though not in the way we expected. True to her promise, she never went to college because it didn't interest her. She lived with a friend for a few months, then got a job and started working to fund the life she wanted. It turned out to be good for her, and she matured a lot along the way. She switched jobs frequently but had been working at an advertising agency for the past couple of years. We knew all this because she kept in touch with other family members who kept us updated. She knew we were informed about her life. About a year ago, my dad fell seriously ill, and we thought we might lose him due to severe heart problems. The cardiologist warned us it looked grim unless he made significant lifestyle changes. At that moment, my dad decided to contact my sister to end their estrangement. Given how much she had matured over the past 15 years, she finally decided to rejoin the family. When she first visited us, she came alone. We didn't talk much about her life. We were too busy reminiscing about the past. She didn't make it all about herself and didn't share much about her current life. We knew about her professional life from our relatives, but her personal life remained a mystery. She seemed happy to be back, and we all focused on her reconciliation with my dad. It was an emotional reunion, and I was thrilled back then, unaware of what was to come. During her second visit, she brought her fiancé, which shocked us all. She revealed that she had been dating him for 3 years and they had recently gotten engaged. No one else in the family knew, which explained why we hadn't heard about it. They had kept it a secret. The flow of information wasn't one-sided. Thanks to our relatives, my sister knew our father was having some health issues, but she didn't realize how serious it was, which is why she hadn't visited. She felt it wasn't appropriate to announce her engagement at the time, so she kept it private. But now, she believed it was time to introduce him to the family, so she brought him along. He seemed like a nice guy, and it was clear he was well off from his expensive clothes, watch, and shoes. I was happy for my sister because she finally seemed to be with someone she wanted, financially stable, focused, and with a clear future ahead. After talking to them, we learned that her fiancé, like her first boyfriend, was the son of a wealthy man who owned a chain of fast food restaurants. But unlike her first boyfriend, this guy seemed serious about her, and it was obvious they were truly in love. I was genuinely happy for her and congratulated them both. I never expected what happened next. About 3 weeks after meeting her fiancé, my father decided it was best to let them take over our business. One morning, he called me and asked me to come home because he wanted to talk about something. I was at work managing everything. Since my dad's heart problem had worsened, I was essentially the boss, even though he hadn't officially retired yet. I expected to eventually become the CEO, but that day changed everything. Suddenly, my sister and her fiancé were in the running to take over the business I had been managing for so long. That day, when I went to my parents' house, my parents were there, looking pretty serious. My sister and her fiancé were not. My dad finally broke the heartbreaking news after some light talk, and at first, I assumed he was kidding. I just couldn't believe it. When I found out he was serious, I questioned him about the rationale for his decision, given that he had only known this individual for 3 weeks. He stated he had a reason, but he would not give one. He argued for a long time before acknowledging that he thought my sister and her fiancé would be more capable than me. To exacerbate the situation, he added that this would be a thoughtful present for them as they begin a new chapter in their lives. They will be married in a few months. They believed this might be a gift for their nuptials. I attempted to talk him out of it, saying that just because the person looked wealthy, a wedding gift didn't have to be the size of an entire company. In addition, he consistently gave me the impression that I would take over the company upon his retirement. He was taking it away to give to people who had been out of our lives for 15 years, and I had based my entire life around this since this was my future. I sought to negotiate, and urged that we become partners in the company. My father, though, was uncompromising. He added that since the father of my sister's fiancé had previously established a profitable company, he thought they could manage the firm more skillfully. He felt they could grow our jewelry company twice as quickly as I could. That day, I asked him for a chance, but he refused to listen, and I was devastated. Not only was I disappointed about losing something so important, but I was also angry because I had given this firm 12 years of my life and had gotten nothing in return. Not even my father had respected me. He wouldn't have ejected me if he had valued my labor and effort. I had nothing left to say to my family. Therefore, that was the day I made the decision to sever all contact with them. My life's work, my sister's so-called wedding gift, was something I had thought she would fight for, but she let me down. My sister had always known that after my dad retired, I planned to take over the family business. Since I was 13, I had not stopped talking about it. It wasn't as if she hadn't realized that when she accepted the wedding gift, she was embracing my ambitions and making them her own. I had looked forward to it my entire life. She announced her engagement along with a social media message in which she expressed her gratitude to our parents for this. The most devastating thing of all, in my opinion, was that the family did not even appear to care about me after that. No one ever attempted to get in touch with me. They stopped talking to me the day I moved out of my father's house, and I felt bullied. My life of 12 years had been a complete waste. I felt like everything had fallen apart, so I was just grateful that I had enough savings to fall back on for a few months. I could afford to do nothing except try to put my life back together. That was 8 months ago, And I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't begun therapy then, since I could tell I was heading into a serious depression that needed to be treated right away. My sister would share posts, and I would get so nauseous from looking at them, so I had to block her. In addition, I had to inform my family that I was no longer in contact with them and that I was interested in hearing from them no more, no matter how large it seemed. I genuinely asked them not to tell me anything about what my family was up to because I don't believe I wanted to know. My sister and her fiancé couldn't give a damn about my dad's health, which had been progressively declining for the past few months, but they respected it and kept it all a secret from me. It wasn't until I got a call from my dad a week ago that I learned about everything. He informed me that he needed me to come visit him in the hospital since he had gone into cardiac arrest in the middle of the night. He had to use someone else's phone to call me since I had blocked his number, and to be honest, I felt terrible about it. I did, however, feel somewhat less bad after recalling what he had done to me 8 months prior. Nevertheless, I promised him that I would go there to visit him as soon as he called to let me know that he was in pain. I decided to check him out in the hospital and left everything behind. To my amazement, neither my sister nor her fiancé could be found anywhere. My parents were present. Given that they were managing the family business, I felt that they were all quite close. Therefore, I found that to be rather perplexing. I asked them where my sister and her fiancé were as soon as I entered the hospital room because I couldn't stop myself. With great regret, my father informed me that both my sister and her fiancé seemed to be too busy to visit him. As someone who has been managing the company for 12 years, I found it startling because it's a profitable venture that essentially runs itself. We are not required to be at work at all times of the day unless there is an emergency to attend to. I am not able to comment on the current situation. In any case, I asked my dad whether they had visited him at the hospital since he suffered his heart attack, and he said that no, they hadn't gone down there because they were too busy to come see him. They had texted back to him after he had called, saying they were too busy to come see him until he was released from the hospital. I was shocked to learn this information, and I believe my dad recognized he had made a serious mistake in letting my sister and her fiancé take over the company. So, he admitted to me that apologizing for what he had done was, in fact, one of the main reasons he had phoned. Despite my hard work and effort, he had kicked me out of the firm, and he told me that he felt really bad about it and regretted it. Now, he wanted to make things right and bring me back into the family and business. He informed me of what had transpired. My sister and her fiancé had failed to show up for him at the hospital. It had dawned on him that they were not as interested in him as he had been in them. Additionally, he informed me that this is not even the first time they have declined to support him. They have been somewhat disengaged for the last few months. He informed me that, following his transfer of the firm to the two of them, they had stopped paying him visits when before, they would pay him a visit every other day to see how he was doing. They never bothered to come see him when his health was first failing, claiming they were too busy at work. He didn't believe this, as he and I both knew that no one was so busy that they couldn't spare an hour out of their day to visit, especially them, since my parents' house was only a few blocks away from theirs. In any case, he never brought it up, but at this point, they had gone too far, and my dad could take no more of this kind of disrespect. He so desired to reclaim his business and deliver it to the rightful owner. We talked about all of this in the hospital ward, and I was ecstatic when he welcomed me back to rejoin the company. Even though I'm still not entirely over it, I did forgive him at the time when he expressed regret for everything, because to me, nothing was more important than getting back what I was rightfully due. The issue now is that, despite his long-standing concern for his daughter, he has finally come to the realization that she has never supported him, and he can no longer put up with this kind of disrespect. He has discussed this with my sister as well. In other words, he was requesting his firm back and releasing it to the rightful owner so they could take care of themselves. Naturally, my sister is furious, and she believes that I am to blame for it. For some reason, she really vented to me over the phone this morning, calling me a terrible person and saying she couldn't believe I was treating her so badly. I'm not really sure why she's getting so worked up over it. She seems to be acting as though she has lost everything and that it's all my fault, even though I have the feeling that there is something that we don't know. To be honest, though, I believe that she should take responsibility for not visiting our father in the hospital. A cardiac arrest, after all, is a serious matter, and she had the option of taking time off work to visit him. It was she that had acted self-servingly, and now I was receiving what I had rightfully earned all along. Why should I refuse something that I genuinely deserve when, 8 months ago, she had no trouble taking a gift that she knew she did not deserve? She is upset about it, to be sure, and I tried to comfort her, but she abruptly hung up on me mid-sentence. I'm starting to question if I'm the evil guy, since it seems like I always end up taking the blame for everything, and I'm just sick of it. Are my parents the bad guys for letting my sister and her fiancé leave the family business so I could get it? Update 1. I really appreciate all of your responses to my post. Although I kind of already knew that I didn't deserve the criticism from my sister, hearing it from you guys only strengthened my conviction. I don't think I need to say anything more in defense of myself if even total strangers who have no idea about our lives believe that I deserve the business. My last communication with my sister was a few days ago, and I haven't heard back from her since. Fortunately, she hasn't blocked me anywhere. However, I can't help but feel that there's more to this than what she's telling us. No one with a wealthy fiancé would likely act that way about missing out on our business, in my opinion. Though I can't confirm anything, I have a feeling that her fiancé might be up to something more than it appears. In the original post comment area, a few of you had asked me about this. At the time, I didn't think it was relevant, so I didn't respond. However, based on what I've heard, his dad's business has been suffering losses for the past year or so, and I don't think her fiancé and his family are doing well financially right now. This, in my opinion, was their strategy for infiltrating our family business and finally seizing control. I'm still not sure why, specifically, my sister acted the way she did when she learned that I was being asked to return to the family business, and that she was being asked to step down. She shouldn't have to worry if her fiancé is wealthy and has his own business, but she was still heartbroken. She was going to come around and tell us about it pretty soon. But something just did not match up. In any case, we are fortunate that my father refrained from signing any contracts or paperwork and did not formally transfer ownership of the company to my sister and her fiancé, since it may have led to a great deal of difficulties for us. They were working under him in the role that I had held before, but he remained the CEO. He was preparing them to take over in the future, but I don't think that will happen now. My father informed me that, although my sister is very distressed, he is not able to take care of her at this time. He's already talking to a lawyer and getting the paperwork ready so I can take over as soon as possible, and it can be made formal and official. He just wants to sign everything over to me so that I can handle it all. That's what he's going to do. I'm just really excited, and I don't even think that my sister's dramatic outburst can put a damper on this for me right now. Update 2. Hello, everyone. It's been a few weeks since my last post, and I just wanted to let you know that I am now the official CEO of my dad's jewelry company. Now that the turnover is complete, I can declare with formal authority that I am in control. I was certain that this day would arrive, but my sister caused a few delays in the proceedings. Approaching her, she seems utterly unhappy about all of this, so I suppose I can at last admit it, my theory was correct. In reality, she and her fiancé were working very cunningly to infiltrate and take over our family business so that they would have a backup plan in case her fiancé's father decided to sell his business. My sister was the one who had instilled in my father the notion of accepting them back into the family by transferring the company to his prospective son-in-law, and he had regrettably fallen for it. All of this was just recently revealed to me after I got back in touch with my father, who admitted to me that he was not acting rationally. He was being avaricious because he had somehow thought that a man from a well-known business family would be more capable of managing everything than I would be. He had initially planned to keep me in the role I had been in up until that point, but he lost his cool when I informed him I would not be interested in the business if I did not end up leading it, which resulted in these 8 months of complete suffering for both of us. Fortunately, he realized his mistake just in time, and we managed to avert a major catastrophe, as my sister's fiancé and his father currently have zero reputation in the market. People had been telling me that his father's company was about to close, but I hadn't bought into it because I knew that my father would get in touch with me if something like this happened, and he had assumed that I would get in touch with him if something this significant was going to occur. It was fairly stupid of us to not reach out to each other as a result. However, my sister has finally acknowledged what she was attempting to accomplish and set aside her ego in order to talk to me. She contacted me a few days before the announcement that I would take over as CEO, informing me that she and her fiancé were in dire need of work because they didn't know how long his dad would be able to work. She was pleading for assistance now, so I told her I would give it some thought. Hiring them is not a problem for me. It's only that, knowing what their initial objectives were, it makes it impossible for me to ever trust them again. That's the reason I'm currently experiencing some strange feelings. While I really want to support her, how can I even hire someone I don't trust? I requested her to give me some time, and so far she has complied, but I'm not sure what else I should do. Update 3. I have made the decision not to hire my sister and her fiancé. I realize that some people would probably think I'm very self-centered, but in all honesty, I can't trust these folks. They initially accepted my dad's offer to take over the business, and for the following 8 months, they didn't even attempt to get in touch with me. They have no empathy or sympathy for anyone but themselves, and I don't want those kinds of people around me or employed by me. I had to break the bad news to my sister that I was unable to assist her. She did not take it well, obviously. She pitched a fit and stormed into my office the other day, calling me cold-blooded and self-centered and saying that she regretted ever letting me have the firm back. That seemed strange to me because she had no involvement in that. As the head, my father made the choice, and anything he said was followed. That was not her decision at the time, and it is not mine today. Therefore, it was absurd of her to appear as though she had done me a great favor. All of that I could have put up with, but that comment really got under my skin. I told her that she had done me no favors either, now or in the past. It's quite naive of her to expect me to feel the same way for her when she didn't appear to care about me. She kept yelling at me when I gently requested her to go. I couldn't handle this amount of drama, so I called the police and had her removed, as she was seriously undermining me. I really don't need this right now because I'm already quite busy at work. She simply departed as the police arrived, though, as she had nothing else to say. Since we haven't heard from her in a few days, I'm going to assume that she should stop bothering us. I don't care if she doesn't, because I'll obtain a restraining order against her. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My parents kicked me out because of my sister. 6 years later, they're asking for help to support her and her 4 young children. I, 32F, am currently in charge of significant commercial development projects around New England as a successful architect at a prominent Boston firm. Nathan, a 34-year-old man who works as a project manager in sustainable development, is my fiancé. Our wedding is scheduled for the following year. On the surface, my life appears to be ideal. I have rewarding work, a wonderful relationship, and a lovely craftsman-style home that I designed extensive modifications for. However, I'm questioning everything because of a complex family situation that recently reached a breaking point. I must go into great depth about my family history in order for you to comprehend the current circumstance. I was raised in a Connecticut suburb in an upper-middle-class household. My mother, Phoebe, 56F, taught high school at a private school until she left 6 years ago, and my father, Richard, 58M, works as a corporate lawyer at a reputable business. Ashley, my younger sister, who is 30F, has always been the star of our family. Favoritism was evident from my earliest recollections, even if my parents would strongly dispute it if questioned. I received consecutive A's on my report card when I was 8, and Ashley was 6, and I was simply informed. "That's expected of you." While Ashley received B's and was commended and brought out for ice cream because she was trying her best. Throughout our childhood, this trend persisted. Ashley's meager efforts were widely praised, while my accomplishments were anticipated and frequently disregarded. When I was 15, I recall one specific occurrence. I had been working on my design project for months, frequently staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning in preparation for a national high school architectural competition. I received a minor scholarship as a result of placing second nationally. Ashley had an ordinary soccer match that day, so my parents didn't even make it to the award ceremony. "That's nice," they replied, barely taking their eyes off the TV as I brought my award home, before turning back to Ashley's dramatic account of how she nearly scored a goal. Even though my parents were clearly biased, I did well in school and in my personal life. I led multiple community service projects, kept a 4.0 GPA, and served as president of the student body. In the meantime, as Ashley approached adolescence, her actions became more alarming. When she began to slip out when I was 14, my parents told me to keep a better eye on her. She was caught stealing high-end makeup when she was 15, and they accused me of not providing her my allowance money, even though she clearly needed it. The assumption that I should put Ashley's needs and interests ahead of my own was the most annoying aspect, not only the partiality. My part-time job at a local design firm, where I made coffee and filed papers, allowed me to save up $3,000 when I was 16. I intended to use it for a Columbia University summer architecture course. My parents, however, borrowed my cash to assist cover the repairs after Ashley, who wasn't supposed to be driving, smashed her boyfriend's car. They never fulfilled their commitment to reimburse me. I lost the chance to improve my college applications and the summer program opportunity. I was able to gain admission to a prominent architectural program in spite of these obstacles. In order to save money, my parents agreed to let me live at home while I was in college and to assist with my tuition. They wanted me around to assist in handling Ashley, who was now in high school and becoming more disobedient by the day, so this wasn't totally selfless. I recall making several attempts to speak with Ashley about her actions. One exchange is particularly memorable. 3 months or so passed before everything collapsed. At 3 o'clock in the morning on a school night, I discovered her slinking back into the house. Assisting Ashley to climb through the window, I whispered, "Ashley, you need to be more careful. You're in your senior year, and colleges look at more than just grades." She retorted, "Stop trying to be mom. Just because your life is boring and all about buildings doesn't mean mine has to be." In hindsight, I ought to have anticipated this. Ashley spent a lot of time with Tyler, her 17-year-old ex-boyfriend, who was known for being trouble. My parents viewed everyone I dated with extreme mistrust, yet they were surprisingly lenient about their relationship. My mother accused me of being envious of Ashley's vibrant social life when I attempted to voice my concerns about Tyler. 6 years ago, everything drastically altered. One day, Ashley, a senior in high school at the time, came home and declared she was expecting a child. The father was Tyler. I can still clearly recall that night, Ashley sitting on the couch with a look of fear and defiance on her face, my father pacing the living room, and my mother sobbing uncontrollably. In the confusion that ensued, my parents somehow twisted the facts to accuse me of failing to keep a closer eye on her. My mother arrived in my room the following day with news that would forever alter my course in life. Without even looking at me, she stated, "You have to move out by the end of the week." I couldn't understand. What? Why? With Tyler moving in and a baby on the way, the house isn't large enough for all of us. Ashley needs your space. One approach to support your sister at this trying period would be to move out. I made an effort to reason with her. During my 3rd year of college, I worked part-time at a nearby architecture business and maintained a 3.9 GPA. She insisted on finding me a cheap apartment close to the university, even though I just requested a few months. The worst thing was when my father summoned me to his home office the next day. He delivered another hit while seated behind his enormous oak desk, which he had always used to frighten clients. "We won't be able to continue your tuition," he stated in a cold, clinical tone. "That money is necessary for Ashley and the child. You'll figure something out since you're intelligent." I stood there, looking at the man who had always emphasized the value of education and accountability, suddenly severing his daughter's ties after she had done everything correctly. The irony hurt. I packed my things that evening. My father stopped me in the driveway as I was packing the final box into my car. I briefly believed that he might reconsider. Rather, he gave me a piece of paper with a list of local women's shelters on it. He said, "Just in case," and went back inside. The next phase of my life was the darkest. For 4 months, I lived in my car, and for safety, parked every night. In the architecture firm where I worked part-time, I would change in public toilets, take a shower in the campus gym, and keep my business attire in my locker. I took a second job working as a late-night barista, frequently juggling multiple jobs while attending classes. I asked a few family members for assistance, but they all turned me down. My 53-year-old Aunt Susan, who had always expressed her pride in my accomplishments, informed me that she didn't want to become embroiled in family strife. According to my grandparents, they were too old to handle the matter. I occasionally went days without eating a decent meal, barely making it on protein bars and coffee. I frequently slept off at my desk while working on my homework in the college library, which was open 24 hours a day. I kept my GPA the same in spite of everything. My escape was architecture. I put all of my suffering and willpower into my designs. My parents never once called to see whether I was still alive during this time. Ashley didn't either. After learning that she had given birth to a boy, I made one phone call, but it was awkward and short. After that, there was no communication for 6 years. I had to start over in my life. Throughout those 6 years, despite working 60-hour weeks and living in my car and then a small room in a dubious area of town, I finished with honors. A famous Boston business was interested in my final thesis project, which was a design for a sustainable community center with transitional housing that received multiple prizes. Living in a small studio apartment and trying to save as much money as I could, I began my career as an entry-level architect. Every advancement was a triumph over my past. I was managing my own projects for 4 years. My area of expertise was sustainable commercial development, and I gained recognition for my creative ideas that put the needs of people and the environment first. 3 years ago, Nathan and I met at a seminar on sustainable development. During the Q&A portion of his presentation on green construction projects, I disputed one of his claims. He invited me to continue the conversation over coffee rather than becoming defensive. Dinner evolved from that coffee into the most wholesome and encouraging relationship I've ever experienced. Nathan is well aware of my background. He was present when I purchased my first home after getting expelled. When I signed the paperwork and broke down because I was so overcome by the fact that I finally had a place where no one could make me leave, he held me. He supported my idea to refurbish it and make it an environment that reflected all of my accomplishments over the years. Through mutual contacts, I occasionally learned tidbits about Ashley's life. Shortly after the birth of their baby, she wed Tyler, but the two of them split up after 6 months. By that time, she was expecting her second kid, but the father had entirely vanished after learning of the pregnancy. She had another kid with Marcus, the man she married 2 years later, but their marriage failed when she had an affair. She is now pregnant once more and doesn't seem to know who the father is. I got a call yesterday from an unidentified number right before bed. After 6 years of stillness, my mother called. She initially pretended nothing had happened, inquiring about my life and showing interest in my accomplishments. I briefly felt like that young child again, excited to tell my mother about my achievements. I even began to tell her about my recent promotion to senior architect and my engagement. Then she revealed the true reason she had called. In order to assist Ashley and her kids, my parents want me to return to Connecticut. They say they're too old to care for 4 small children, and my father will shortly be retiring. They even had the gall to claim that, as the successful sister, it is my duty to support the family. My mother said, "You've always been the responsible one," with that cunning tone I so vividly remembered in her voice. Now, more than ever, Ashley needs her big sister. Family must remain united. A chilly chuckle erupted within me. Family have to stick together, I said. I said it again when I was sleeping in my car. Where was this family when I was barely eating and working 2 jobs, when there was nobody for me to turn to? I went on, despite my mother's attempt to stop me. You absolutely abandoned me, kicked me out, and stopped paying for my schooling in order to help Ashley. You expect me to sacrifice my life, career, and relationship in order to clean up your mess once more, now that she has continued to make bad decisions and you're sick of dealing with the fallout? I hung up after telling her that I would never again risk my life for Ashley. Since then, family members who turned down my request for assistance 6 years ago have been bombarding my phone with messages accusing me of being callous and asserting that family helps family. Nathan completely agrees with my decision to uphold my boundaries, but other people argue that, since they are still family and retaliation won't mend old hurts, I should at least have a meeting with them. But this doesn't seem like vindictiveness to me. I saw it as defending the life I created on my own after being deserted by those who were meant to keep me safe. Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their tremendous support and wisdom. My phone has been buzzing nonstop with messages from extended family members for the past 48 hours, which has been very taxing. The circumstances have changed in unexpected ways. My mother wrote me a long email detailing Ashley's children's daily problems, along with comprehensive pictures of my nieces and nephews. The oldest, who is currently in kindergarten, is exhibiting early behavioral problems. The second child's health issues necessitate regular medical care. Another is on the way, while the third is still a toddler. A communication from an old family friend, who teaches at Ashley's old high school, was what really got to me. She informed me that, in order to pay for Ashley's costs and medical bills, my parents have been taking out loans. My father has delayed his retirement indefinitely, and they have already remortgaged their home. Ashley personally sent a direct message, which was the most unexpected development. She reached out for the first time in 6 years, not to apologize, but to let her big sister know that she had changed and needed her. She talked about acknowledging her past sins and attending therapy. Although I've seen this pattern before, I still have a part of me that wants to believe her. In order to keep both physical and emotional distance from the family, my fiancé Nathan proposed a compromise, providing financial support for the kids' schooling. Through a trust fund, it's an intriguing idea that would enable me to assist the defenseless kids without being embroiled in the family strife. All of this is still registering in my mind. Seeing those pictures of the children, who are innocent in all of this, has made me feel conflicted, even though my logical side knows I owe them nothing. When I make a choice about Nathan's suggestion, I'll provide another update. I need some time right now to process everything without having to deal with family pressure all the time. Update 2. Over the last 24 hours, everything has drastically changed. My mother called me in an emergency last night. Ashley had been involved in a severe vehicle accident. Another automobile ran a red light and collided with her car while she was driving alone. The situation was dire because she was pregnant. I got into my car and drove to Connecticut for 4 hours without giving it any thought. It felt unreal to enter that hospital. As he paced the corridor in his faded suit, my father appeared to be much older than his years. When she saw me, my mother lost it. I hadn't actually seen them in person for 6 years. Although Ashley's injuries were not life-threatening because of the airbags, The doctors added they had to perform an emergency C-section in order to save the baby, with a questionable prognosis. The premature baby is currently in the NICU. My biggest surprise was going back to the house I grew up in. I grudgingly complied with my parents' request that I remain, rather than book a hotel. Entering my former room felt like entering a time portal. My old desk was still in its original condition. My architecture designs were still attached to the walls, and even my high school trophies were still neatly arranged. Everything was just as I had left it 6 years prior. Then it dawned on me that they hadn't actually converted my room into an area for Ashley. The whole needing the room pretext had been nothing more than a pretext. Another unanticipated emotional moment was meeting my nieces and nephews. I was astonished to hear Charlie, 6, the oldest, say, "Aunt Rebecca, I know you from the pictures." My parents had apparently informed them about their aunt, who constructs stunning structures. In spite of everything, after I assisted them in building a block tower, the smaller ones, Ava, 4, and Lucas, 2, who had been timid at first, quickly warmed up. After 3 days here, I'm learning new things that make my emotions even more complicated. I discovered a stack of unsent letters from my father while searching through some old documents for Ashley's insurance information. They were letters of apologies that he never mailed, all addressed to me and dated throughout the previous 6 years. Tears appeared to have soiled several of them. Yesterday, Nathan flew in to help me get through this. I became aware of how much these children deserved to be free from the chaos they were born into as I watched him engage with my nieces and nephew, using play to teach them basic engineering concepts. Ashley is still in and out of consciousness, but she is stable presently. The baby's condition is still dire. Although I've taken an emergency leave of absence, I have some important project deadlines to attend to in Boston next week. How I feel about things is still a mystery to me. My fury is still there, but it's mixed up with other feelings I can't quite put my finger on. The youngsters, who somehow know about me, the preserved chamber, and the unsent letters are all making me rethink how I perceived the previous 6 years. I have to return to the hospital right now to get an update on the baby's health. Next week, when I return to Boston, I will write more. I'm just attempting to live day by day for the time being. Connecticut, this time with Nathan. I just got back to Boston. It was a complex experience. Ashley asked me to invite him expressly because she wanted to meet the person who makes her sister happy. The dynamics were revealing and unpleasant. I made a startling discovery while we were there. I discovered years' worth of Ashley's treatment records while assisting my mother with organizing some medical paperwork. My parents never disclosed to me that she had been dealing with bipolar disorder since she was in her teens. Manic episodes occurred at the same time as the numerous pregnancies and relationship problems. This information adds another level of complexity to the process, but it does not justify the way they treated me. The most pivotal event occurred when I spoke with Ashley privately in her hospital room. She was more lucid than I had seen her in years, most likely as a result of taking her medications as prescribed following the accident. She acknowledged that, even in high school, she had envied my success and security. "You made everything look so easy," she stated, "and I felt like the family disappointment in comparison." Neither of us missed the irony. Nathan's presence proved to be quite important. I was too deeply invested to notice what he saw. One evening at supper, he pointed out that my father was unable to look me in the eye, displaying signals of intense embarrassment instead of the apathy I had always imagined. Additionally, he saw my mother's tendency to begin statements and then stop them quickly, seemingly out of fear of saying the wrong thing. The children now play a big role in my emotional equation. Charlie, 6, my oldest nephew, showed me his architectural drawings, which were sloppy but sincere attempts to replicate images of my work that my parents must have shown him. When the younger ones, Ava, 4, and Lucas, 2, began referring to Nathan as Uncle, it had a deeper impact on him than he anticipated. The infant will need to remain in the NICU for at least another month, although her condition has stabilized. My parents have been sleeping in the waiting area on shifts, refusing to leave their grandchildren alone. According to a nurse who spoke to us during one of our hospital stays, they appear emotionally and physically worn out. I've made some sensible choices. A family therapist with expertise in intergenerational trauma is what I'm setting up. I've also discussed working remotely for a few days every month with my company. I haven't changed my mind about returning to Connecticut, though I now live and work in Boston. On the way back to Boston, Nathan and I had a lengthy conversation. His statement, "Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't forgiving others, it's forgiving yourself for still caring," really resonated with me. I've been feeling bad about not being able to control my rage in its purest, protective form, so this really spoke to me. I have a crucial client meeting tomorrow, so I must concentrate. Strangely, at the moment, routine work duties feel both anchoring and inconsequential after our first family therapy appointment, which is set for next week. I'll provide another update. Update 4. Something important happened during my parents' trip to Boston last weekend, so I had to write this update. You read correctly. They traveled to Boston, ostensibly to talk about important issues pertaining to the family situation. I initially consented to meet them in a neutral setting, a peaceful cafe close to the public garden, but they persisted in touring my residence because they claimed to be interested in learning more about my life. I reluctantly consented after speaking with Nathan and establishing explicit guidelines on the length of their stay. It was surprising how they responded to my house. Normally stoic, my father broke down when he saw my architecture awards in my home office. However, their true purpose caught me completely off guard. They produced paperwork that demonstrated they had been covertly putting money aside for me ever since they expelled me. I've never witnessed my father sobbing so much in my life. He clarified that for 6 years, they had established a different savings account and contributed the amount equal to my college tuition each month. It has grown to a significant amount with interest. Their justification: they intended to leave it in their will because they were too embarrassed to deal with me personally. A fierce confrontation resulted from this revelation. I let out years' worth of suppressed rage because I could no longer contain it. "Do you think money can fix what you did?" I yelled. "I lived in my vehicle. I didn't eat. I tried to keep up my grades by working till I was worn out." My father then made a statement that really stopped me cold. "We don't expect forgiveness," he stated. "We just want you to know that your suffering has haunted us every single day." He then showed me his diary, which detailed all of my accomplishments that he had followed over the years via social media and professional networks. He mentioned my advancements, my first significant project, and even the Sustainable Design Prize I received the previous year. After sobbing quietly, my mother finally opened up about Ashley's past mental health issues. Evidently, they had observed similar behavioral tendencies in Ashley's early years but disregarded the warning signs in favor of managing me as the stable child. She acknowledged that their parenting style had been completely incorrect. When they mentioned their most recent worries, the topic of conversation changed. They disclosed that Marcus, Ashley's ex-husband, is attempting to obtain full custody of their child by using the accident and Ashley's history of mental illness, just as she is beginning to stabilize with her new medicine regimen. They are concerned that this could lead to another breakdown. This is when the situation becomes complex. I'm no longer being asked to relocate back. Rather, they are asking me to assist them in locating a reputable mental health center in Boston for Ashley and the child after she is discharged from the NICU, in order to assist with the other children while Ashley receives the care she needs. They wish to sell their Connecticut home and relocate closer to Nathan, who remained close by to provide assistance if necessary. Subsequently, Nathan made a significant observation. They are finally acknowledging their mistakes and trying to find actual solutions instead of just dumping responsibilities on you. I'm still taking it all in. Although the money they saved doesn't change the past, their persistent covert efforts at making amends reveal a level of regret I hadn't previously thought of. My father's journal seems like a heartbreaking reminder of what might have been, a father who was proud of his daughter's accomplishments but was too embarrassed to say so out loud. To learn more about Ashley's custody dispute and what part, if any, I should play in it, I'm meeting with a family law lawyer tomorrow. Additionally, I'm looking into psychiatric hospitals that focus on postpartum mental health treatment. Regarding my assistance with Ashley's treatment plans, I have not responded to them, although I have a strong desire to uphold rigid limits. I also acknowledge that this could be an opportunity for genuine structural change in our family's dynamic. This time, with the right boundaries and expert assistance, things could be different. Once I've decided how I want to participate in these new developments, I'll provide another update. Update 5. I've made some decisions regarding my relationship with my family going forward. After giving it a lot of thought and attending multiple family therapy sessions, initially in response to my parents' inquiry concerning Ashley's care, I assisted them in locating a respectable mental health and postpartum care center in Boston. I did, however, clarify that my participation would be strictly limited and professional. Although I will not be personally involved in Ashley's daily care, I was able to connect them with the resources they needed through my professional network. My parents' savings account has been transformed into a trust fund, of which I am the trustee for Ashley's children's education. This arrangement guarantees that the funds will be utilized suitably while upholding professional boundaries. Nathan used his financial planning and contacts to assist in setting things up. I never imagined how my relationship with my family would change over time. I've developed a methodical approach to keeping in touch that safeguards my personal well-being. Even if I won't be returning to Connecticut or taking on any caregiving duties, we've decided to continue family therapy sessions and have frequent video chats with the kids, with Ashley being contacted directly only in case of emergencies. Even though my mother still calls a lot, I've seen a big shift in the way she handles things. She no longer makes demands or guilt trips before providing family information, and she respects my limits when I tell her that I'm too busy to talk. My father made the most unexpected revelation. In addition to sending me a formal written apology outlining particular occasions in which he failed me as a father, he began visiting his own therapist. Instead of the cliched, "I'm sorry for everything," I had anticipated, I received a considerate acknowledgement of particular negative behaviors and how they affected my life. After being admitted to the treatment center, Ashley is beginning to show recovery. At last, the infant is well and no longer in the NICU. I've made arrangements for a child psychologist to work with her older children to help them deal with these changes while I keep an emotional distance. I've decided not to include my family too much in our wedding arrangements, which Nathan and I are moving forward with, although they will be invited as guests. Friends who helped me through my darkest moments will play the customary family roles in the wedding. I am content with my choices. As I look to the future, it's a carefully planned relationship that safeguards my mental health while recognizing the intricacy of familial ties. Even though it's not the total reunion some might expect, for I've discovered that taking care of family members doesn't have to mean compromising my own health or giving into toxic relationships. There isn't a tidy happy ending to my story where everything is forgiven and forgotten. Rather, it ends realistically, with relationships being reframed on better terms, professional assistance being sought, and boundaries being upheld. That's the best we can do at times, and that's acceptable. My last update will be this one. We are grateful to everyone who helped and counseled us along the way. I was able to strike a balance between self-preservation and compassion because of your ideas. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.